Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction, dear President Tsoulas, President Radev, President of the Delphi Economic Forum, Simeon Somokos, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends all. Thank you for the very warm welcome back to Delphi for this, the 10th anniversary Delphi Economic Forum. For the past decade, this forum has convened policy, industry, and thought leaders from around the world to explore the trends shaping our economies and our societies. From geopolitical shifts and changing trade dynamics to the rise of AI and advanced digital technologies, population aging, and climate change. In ancient times, people came to Delphi to consult the oracle and receive the prophecies from the Greek god Apollo. And in those ancient times, Apollo's advice or sanction was sought by politicians and others to forecast the outcomes of projected wars or political actions. And there was something fatalistic about receiving and accepting that advice and guidance and acting based on those prophecies. But of course, convening here in Delphi at the Delphi Economic Forum for the 10th time over these next few days, we know, and we should know, that there is in fact nothing fatalistic about our future prospects. For better or for worse, the future is not inevitable. It is up to us to make the necessary decisions today to shape a better future with determination and with optimism, even if the evolving context can seem overwhelmingly complex and challenging. A meeting here last year, despite our closeness to the oracle, we could not have predicted all that has happened in the world over this past year, the past few months and weeks, and even today. This forum and others like it provide the opportunity to take stock, to reflect, to engage, and to define the ways in which we can help shape a better future based on the insights and actions flowing out of our discussions here and elsewhere. We have the opportunity to help shape the best possible future, the best possible way forward, successfully navigating the current uncertainty and change. And that conviction is very much what underpins our work at the OECD as an organization committed to better policies for better lives. We are, in fact, the successor organization to the OEEC, the Organization for European Economic Cooperation, which implemented the Marshall Plan. The inspired and ultimately highly successful Marshall Plan stands as proof of what can be achieved with positive, committed international cooperation, changing the trajectory for the better from a very difficult starting position. It stands as proof of the very positive and visionary contribution of the United States to peace, stability, and prosperity in Europe on the strong foundations of a commitment to individual freedom, democracy, market-based economic principles, and international cooperation. For 64 years, our organization has provided objective, evidence-based analysis to support policymakers in finding common solutions to shared policy challenges through data, agreed best practices, and platforms for constructive, solutions-focused dialogue. And engagement with our organization continues to grow. Through our 8 accession candidate countries from Latin America, Southeast Asia, and Southeast Europe, including, indeed, Bulgaria, and our deepening engagement across all continents, including with Africa, which is proof that there is an enduring desire among countries to come together and work together, develop solutions for a better future on the strong foundation of democratic and market-based economic principles. The OECD is an evidence-driven organization, and the current evidence certainly points to a very challenging policy environment. In our interim economic outlook, which we launched last month, that is before the announcements in Washington on April 2nd, or indeed today, highlights that uncertainty in economic and trade policy was already increasingly weighing on our economic forecasts. We projected global GDP to grow at a lower 3.1% this year and 3% next year. That was 0.2 percentage lower this year and 0.3 percentage lower next year compared to our previous forecast back in December. Inflationary pressures persist, and recent inflation rates rose in 28 out of the 52 OECD and other economies for which we have data. Our projections point to a slower decline in inflation than previously anticipated. And I know the next question is, well, what is your updated forecast from here? We will be providing our main annual economic outlook in the margins of our Ministerial Council meeting in early June. But suffice to say, unless there is another major change in the other direction between now and June, based on the announcements in relation to widespread US tariffs imposed on countries and jurisdictions around the world, we are anticipating a further downgrade in global growth in that upcoming economic outlook, as well as further upward pressure on inflation. Several risks risk further weakening growth. Accelerating trade fragmentation risks discouraging business investment and increased costs both for business and consumers, as well as lead to lower economic growth and incomes. Greece, as a comparatively small and open export-oriented economy, which depends on exports for 43.7% of its GDP, would be particularly impacted by a slowdown in its main economic partners across the European Union. Higher than expected inflation across the world will increase the challenges facing central banks and could result in a more restrictive monetary policy than would otherwise be expected, which would put additional pressures on already volatile corporate and sovereign debt markets. On the upside, a lasting, positive and productive resolution of recently imposed trade restrictions would push growth higher and reduce inflation relative to the baseline. Similarly, the cessation of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine or of the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East could improve consumer confidence and business investment. In the meantime, continued ambitious structural reforms will be key to mitigate the impact of these risks and to improve our medium to long-term growth prospects. First, strengthening government's fiscal discipline and resilience to market fluctuations. Government interest payments have already increased as a share of GDP in about 2/3 of OECD countries this past year. And around 40% of all sovereign and corporate debt is set to mature over the next 3 years, which will likely be refinanced at higher interest rates. Focused fiscal measures are needed to secure debt sustainability, to retain the ability to react to future shocks and address rising spending pressures, including those driven by population aging, increased defense requirements, and climate change. We need to do more to better control growth in expenditures, improve spending efficiency, reallocate spending to areas that better support opportunities and growth, and to optimize tax revenues. Second, fostering open markets, finding constructive solutions to trade tensions and avoiding counterproductive trading and regulatory barriers between countries. In relation to the recent tariff announcements by the United States, we strongly encourage everyone to engage in proactive and solutions-focused bilateral and multilateral dialogue, including at the OECD, to work on better ways to make international trade fairer, to improve the global level playing field, to tackle unfair trade practices, and to improve supply chain resilience and strengthen economic security while keeping markets open and without the need to resort to punitive tariffs. This would be good for business and consumer confidence, for financial market stability, and consequently for investment and growth. For EU countries, we recommend stronger efforts to more fully secure the available but not yet fully realized benefits of the single European market by tackling remaining barriers to intra-EU trade. Services is one key area in which improvements could be made, particularly in legal services, retail and construction sectors, which have in fact seen an increase in entry barriers between 2018 and 2022. Estimates indicate that if barriers to services trade across the European Union were reduced to US levels, the level of EU labor productivity would be almost 7% higher after 7 years. The single market for digital services could also be better integrated. The OECD's Digital Services Trade Restrictiveness Index shows that the average level of restrictiveness in the European Union remains higher than that in the UK and the US, which can discourage investment and innovation. Regulatory limitations on downloading and streaming, non-harmonized restrictions on online advertising, as well as fragmented approaches to cybersecurity requirements hamper the development of intra-EU trade in digital services. Third, continuing to develop capital markets to boost business innovation. In the European Union, advancing the work towards the capital market union would reduce the cost of capital for business, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises, including innovative startups seeking to scale up their businesses. This means building on the recent progress in simplifying withholding tax procedures. It means necessary and well overdue reforms to harmonize insolvency regimes, fostering greater pension fund participation in capital markets, and providing fiscal incentives to private equity investors for venture investments. And there is also room to increase the participation of households in capital markets, and the President of Bulgaria touched on that. The latest available statistics show that only about 17% of EU household assets were held in financial securities, compared to 43% in the United States. Strengthening financial inclusion and improving consumer protection will help mobilize more retail investors. Fourth, accelerating the diffusion and adoption of artificial intelligence. Our estimates indicate that successful adoption and diffusion of AI can increase labor productivity by between 0.4 and 0.9% per year over the next 10 years, rising to 1.5% if we optimize synergies between AI and robotics. AI deployment is highly energy intensive, underscoring the importance of accelerating investments in cross-border energy grid connections across the European Union to enhance the stability and the resilience of electricity systems. Equipping current and future workers with the relevant skills to interact with AI, such as numeracy and critical thinking, including through lifelong learning opportunities, will also be essential to scale up the adoption of AI. And regulations to ensure the trustworthy, ethical, and safe use of AI will ensure that we maximize the benefits of AI while managing some of the associated downside risks and disruptions. In closing, it's a statement of the obvious, that the current climate of uncertainty is weighing on our economic prospects. But there is room for optimism. We do have the tools, we do have the ability to build resilience, the foundations for stronger growth, and confidence for consumers, workers, investors, and businesses. Now is the time to take bold policy action to rein in public spending, to harness the benefits of open markets, attract productive investments, and to seize all of the exciting benefits for humanity of AI. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing your perspectives on how we can implement the policies needed to make this happen, delivering better policies for better lives. Thank you.